Welcome into Pac-12 Preview. And man, what a weekend it is. I hope everybody had an absolutely phenomenal Thanksgiving, family, friends, all the food. Hopefully you're still enjoying all the food. Well, I'm guessing there's a lot of leftovers no matter what. But that being said, I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving with their families. You got to enjoy some, there was football all day, obviously, pro, college. And yes, college-wise, I saw that Mississippi State did beat Ole Miss in that rivalry game there. But, but let's get to it, man. Let's enjoy what was the last weekend in the Pac-12 and what it did to rankings, the results. Pac-12 Championship Game is half set. For those of you that don't know, that team right there, the USC Trojans, they are in the Pac-12 Championship Game. Lincoln Riley's first year, and again, I wasn't dismissive when he showed up. The defense was going to be the one key because look, Caleb Williams, he ended up transferring to USC from Oklahoma, as you all know. And Lincoln Riley being his head coach, again, getting what he wants, and the leaps and bounds that offense, what they've done and how the defense has grown as well. So that is absolutely huge for the Trojans. They are in the championship game. But yes, when we look at last week's results, USC in the battle for LA beat USC beat UCLA 48-45. And you talk about just a roller coaster game of emotions. I touched on this a little bit on Monday. UCLA was up 14-0 to start the game, first quarter. At the end of the one, it was 14-0, and then it was 21-20 at half because SC outscored UCLA 20-7 in the second. In the third, the Trojans outscored them 14-10. They both scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. And people say, oh, not much defense. Look, these offenses are just that good. And I can point to you other big games throughout the year all over the country where to highly ranked teams met, and there were high scores. So there's no defense to be shown there either. You're not just going to compliment one's offenses and not the other. And with what Caleb Williams has done, this young man should be in New York, in my humble opinion, for the Heisman. But we'll get to that. They get the 48-45 win over the Bruins last weekend. So they are in the Pac-12 championship game. Oregon, man, well, we go from 48-45. We go from 93 total points scored to 37 total points scored as the 12th ranked Ducks, trying not to lose 2 in a row at home after they fell to UW the week before. But they beat Utah 20-17. And Cam Rising, again, had 3 interceptions in that game for Utah. But Oregon, Bo Nix banged up, but still able to lead the offense down the field when he needed to. And they get the 20-17 victory over the Utes, outscoring them 3-0 in the fourth quarter. So, you talk about a defensive battle, punch you, again, just getting punched in the face and responding. Both of those teams did, but Oregon gets a 2017 victory. Washington rolled Colorado 54-7. Oregon State did come to Tempe and beat ASU 31-7. And the Cougars, were down in Tucson, beat the Wildcats 31-20. And then in the game, as they call it in Northern California, Stanford and Cal, the Golden Bears come back 21 points in the fourth quarter to outscore the Cardinal 21-3, and they get the 27-20 victory in their rivalry game. And again, the reason why USC and UCLA played last week is because, well, we'll get to it in a second, but USC, again, plays Notre Dame this weekend. It's in Southern California, and when it is, that's always the last game of the season between the Trojans and the Irish. So with those results, like I said, USC won. They're in the Pac-12 championship. They are 8-1 in conference, 10-1 overall. Their only loss, of course, to, well, the Utes of Utah, 43-42 in Utah. So it's, they are in the Pac-12 championship game. Now, where it gets interesting is the Ducks, with their win last week, they're 7-1 in conference play, 9-2 overall. Yeah, they're 7-1 in conference, 9-2 overall. Washington, see, they creep back in. They are 6-2 in conference play, 9-2 overall as well. The Utes are 6-2 as well in conference, 8-3 overall. The Oregon State and UCLA both 5-3 in conference play, 8-3 overall. Washington State, they are 4-4 in conference play, 7-4 overall. Cal, Arizona, and Arizona State, all 2-6 in conference play. Cal and U of A are 4-7 overall. The Sun Devils 3-8. Colorado 1-7 in conference play, 1-10 overall. And your Cardinal of Stanford 1-8 in conference play, 3-8 overall. So here's the chaos of it. So in the matchups we have, so mostly rivalry. Again, I told you the ones that weren't, but ASU plays U of A today, 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific on Fox Sports 1. UCLA is at Cal at 4:30 Pacific, or 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific on Fox. And that's today. But tomorrow, Oregon takes on Oregon State in that huge rivalry game. Utah-Colorado closes. Utah's at Colorado. Like I said, Notre Dame's at USC, but Washington and Washington State, and then BYU is playing Stanford. So, yes, Stanford done with all their conference games, and it's been a tough season, but the Cougars of BYU will be taking on the Cardinal of Stanford tomorrow. But okay, so where we are standing wise, it is absolutely paramount. So if Oregon wins, they're playing USC in the Pac-12 championship game, right? If Oregon loses and Washington wins, the Huskies beat Washington State, they would be 7-2. They'd both be 7-2 in conference play. Oh, head-to-head tiebreaker. Washington beat Oregon, so Washington would be playing the Trojans. Now, where it gets tricky, see, because even if Utah wins and say Oregon does lose to Oregon State, they would both be 7-2, but Oregon has the head-to-head win over Utah. So Oregon, in that instance, the Ducks would still go. The Oregon State at 5-3 and UCLA. If Oregon State beats Oregon, yes, they would be 6-3, but then they would need Washington to lose, and they would also need, even if Utah loses, Oregon State. So basically, it's between Oregon and Washington, and even Utah, actually. So Oregon, Washington, and Utah, again, if UCLA beats Cal and tiebreakers too, there's a lot of insanity there. But the chaos of the top, the Ducks, yes, are in control. But hey, the 21st ranked Beavers are not going to roll over for them. So absolute madness and chaos, and we will preview that. But let's look at the college football rankings, how they fell after last weekend's results. Georgia still number 1. Ohio, well, the top 4 is the same. Georgia at 1, Ohio State at 2, Michigan at 3, TCU at 4, all 4 of them 11-0. LSU jumped up 1 spot to number 5. They're 9-2. USC is at 6, below LSU, which they have no business being below. Or 9-2. Sorry, LSU's 9-2. USC's 10-1. And I'm sorry, USC's one loss is to a much better team than the 2 losses of. And I know Florida State's at 16 when they played Florida State. Florida State was nowhere to be in there. And it's just crazy to get more credit for a loss towards the end of the season. With that, USC did lose to Utah, and that was it. And the Utes they're down 4 spots, but they happen to be number 14. And to me, that's just absolutely maddening. That SC is below LSU, but it'll play out because if SC wins out, LSU shouldn't be anywhere around in the Final Four because Michigan and Ohio State play, as we know. But yes, so SC's at 6, and then you get Alabama and Clemson at 7 and 8. Oregon they are up 3 spots with their win at 9 and 2. They are at number 9. Washington, they are up 4 spots, winning last week as well. They are up to number 13. Utah right behind them at 14, and the Oregon State Beavers at 21. So the Pac-12 very well represented in the college football playoff. College football playoff rankings. SC again still a shot at the Final Four. Very good shot at the Final Four, but they got to take care of business. They have a Notre Dame team that has been coming on and is 8-3, and they are actually number 15 in the college football ranking. So it goes Washington, Utah, and Notre Dame. So for USC, they didn't conference-wise, they didn't play Washington this year. Those two skipped each other, but I mean, having played Utah, they lost to Utah. They haven't played Oregon either, and which they could play in the championship game, but beating UCLA, beating Oregon State, and falling to Utah. Again, don't see how they're below LSU at 10-1. They have no business being below LSU, and LSU's getting too much credit. But neither here nor there. That being said, though, that's where the rankings are at. Absolutely. Again, 6 teams in the Pac-12 with Oregon, USC, Washington, Oregon State, and Utah. It is 6, right? Yeah, 6. So 6 teams. Pardon me. Sorry about that. Just making sure it's right. But it's half of the conference in the CFP top 25, in which they do belong. And, well, they'd have to beat Oregon to skyrocket up more. But Ole Miss, again, losing to Mississippi State, unranked Mississippi State. But, of course, they'll probably put Mississippi State in at or Ole Miss down to 25 and put Mississippi State in at 24, although I don't think – let's see, in the AP, did they receive any votes? Oh, Mississippi State did receive 3, so, of course, they'll have to do that to help Ole Miss out. Why wouldn't they? But that being said, anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let it go. It's Thanksgiving weekend. So let's get right to it. Today's games, man. Well, in Tempe, again, it's always tough. They call it Hate Week because they put the Arizona A as the second letter, and it is that is our first game. That we'll talk about the Sun Devils and the Wildcats down in Tucson, as Arizona Stadium here in Tucson, as they get set to go. The Sun Devils have won 5. Yes, the last 5 Territorial Cup battles, the oldest rivalry, the oldest Cup battle rivalry in college football. They have won the last 5 in a row. There are seniors on this team, whether it be 5th year or I guess you could say 6th year because of COVID, that year not counting, that have never lost to Arizona for the Sun Devils. And yes, you know where my allegiance is. I am a Sun Devil alum. Yes. Oops. Right there. That pitchfork right there. But I love this week. Again, it is absolutely, day after Thanksgiving for years. They pushed it back once, but anyway, day after Thanksgiving, everybody's, excited to come down, get everything done, all that good stuff. But there is a game to be played. And like I said last time, ASU has won the last 5 for ASU. Last time they were on the field, look, it was tough. They got drubbed last week by Oregon State 31-7 and just couldn't get much going outside of Valade, who had a nice day rushing. Again, they couldn't get much going in the passing game, and that's why it was tough, only throwing for 122 yards. Did Trenton Bourguet, no touchdowns with no interceptions, but Valade, 13 carries for 109 yards. And you look at what he did, and Damian Martinez for Oregon State, talk about him in a second, but 22 carries for 138 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns for Martinez, 1 for Valade, though, but 13 for 109. He's over 1,000 yards rushing on the season, over 4,000 for his career, which he surpassed when they beat Colorado in Boulder. But look, when you look at this, the two things about these teams, and from the ASU standpoint, we look at it, but when we look at team stats, so offensively, Arizona is 5th in total yards, 460.8 yards a game, and that is 5th. They are also 3rd in passing. Jaden Delora had a heck of a season, except for, again, tempers boiling over last week. But they are 3rd in passing, 329.2 yards a game. And rushing-wise, though, for Arizona, the Wildcats are 8th and at 131.6 yards a game. So they like to spread the ball out, no surprise, and that's why you're 8th, in rushing. But when we look at this for Arizona, it is one of those things where team-wise, offensively, okay, but defensively, this is where it's interesting with both teams. Points allowed. Arizona's 11th, allowing 36.6 points per game. Are the Wildcats. So points allowed, they're 11th. For yards allowed, this is where it's tough. Yeah, they're 11th. They're just ahead of Colorado, as they have allowed 461.5 yards a game. And they also have allowed 213.5 yards a game on the ground running the ball. Now, yes, it is a rivalry game, but so yards allowed, again, 11th for the Wildcats. And for sacks, neither one of these teams is, Arizona is 11th, again, 14 sacks on the season for the Wildcats. The only team that doesn't have double digits is Colorado. They're at 9, so looking to get to 10, but 14 sacks on the season for the Wildcats puts them 11th in sacks. And also, like I said, in yards allowed, they're also 11th. So it's a defense that you can be very opportunistic with, and in points, again, 11th. So they got the 11th spot locked up in everything there, do the Wildcats. But when you look at team-wise, but when you look at them real quick individually, Jaden Delora, 2nd in the conference, passing yards, 3,485. And yes, that is 2nd. And I'll get to who's 1st in a minute. Rushing-wise, their highest-ranked rusher is Michael Wiley. He's 11th. He's rushed for 557 yards this season. But he does have 5 rushing touchdowns, does Wiley. So they want to spread it out. They want to spray it all over the field. So that's where they are rushing-wise. And then receiving-wise, Jacob Cowing, talked about him all season long. He is over 1,000 yards rushing. There's only two. Dorian Singer and Jacob Cowing. Sorry, I talked Jacob Cowing, but Dorian Singer passed his teammate last week. Two receivers are over 1,000 yards in the Pac-12 already this season, both from Arizona. So when I say Jayden de Laura, who's, like I said, second in yardage, 3,485 yards, and when you look at what he's thrown for 3,485, 25 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, but his completion percentage up at 63.1%. So yeah, he is spraying it all over the field. And when you put it up that much, yes, interceptions can happen. So that is that's that. But yeah, he's number two. But yeah, his receivers are 1 and 2. Dorian Singer, 1,014 yards. Jacob Cowing at 1,001 yards. And like I said, I know I sound like a broken record, but they do spray it all over the field. These guys can get open, and it's absolutely insane what they've been able to do against quite a few defenses. And yeah, they may have not won, but teams have run the ball on them. But again, throwing it around on USC. Oregon was probably their toughest game because Oregon didn't. Well, I don't want to say toughest game, but most frustrating game for Arizona because Oregon rushed for over 300 yards on them and didn't throw the ball much and kept that offense off the field. But Jayden de Laura, there's not a throw that this young man is afraid of. Having watched games, and when you see it, and they went into Pasadena and beat the Bruins and pretty much ruined the Bruins shot at or the leeway of the Bruins maybe getting into the Pac-12 championship game, because had the Bruins beat Arizona, the whole coulda, shoulda, woulda. But even if they lost to SC, they still would have had a chance to win this weekend and get back into the Pac-12 championship game and rematch with USC. But that's not going to happen for the Bruins. So the Wildcats, yes, can put up points. Yes, can spray it all over the field. So it's going to be very, very challenging for this Sun Devil defense, because when we look at defensively, let's start with that. So for points allowed, ASU is 9th, and they've allowed 30.8 points per game. And again, the 31 to Oregon State helped boost that, but it's again, it's been a little challenging, but 30.8 points per game, they're 9th. And so for yards allowed, per game, ASU is 8th at 416.2 yards per game. And then in sacks, they do have double digits. I know that. They are 7th, and they have 16. They're tied for 7th. They have 16 sacks on the season. And again, the leader in the clubhouse, everybody's chasing SC on that. But we'll get to them in a minute. But yeah, so 16 sacks puts them 7th, 7th in the tie for 7th in the conference with 16 sacks. When you flip it over offensively, though, look, they did have the change at quarterback. Team-wise, total yardage between for ASU, they are 8th at 373.5 yards per game, 373.5 yards per game. So they are 8th in yards, total yards. And then passing wise, again, the switch from Emory Jones to Trenton Bourguet. Jones went down. Bourguet beats Washington. Interim head coach Aguano turns it up, or turns it more into a competition. And Trenton Bourguet's been starting. But yeah, offensively for the Sun Devils, they are 10th passing yards a game. Yeah, sorry, they are 10th, not total yards, but offensively, 240.6 yards a game passing. That is that is about 90 yards less than what Arizona's doing. And then rushing wise, though, the Sun Devils are 7th at 132.9 yards a game. And that's just a yard more than Arizona, who's behind them in 8th team-wise. So, look, X-Valade, Daniel Nagata, if they get the ball more, X-Valade is getting the ball, but if you give it to Daniel Nagata a little bit more, I think there'll be the opportunities. You see everything that's once you put something on film, teams are copycat teams, and we know that. So offensively, if you're the Sun Devils, you're thinking, okay, we got to get X going. Yes, we have to pass the ball, loosen them up a little bit, but you can loosen them up by literally making them try and stack the box even more, because Oregon spread it around. Like I said, I mean, you have a running quarterback like Bo Nix, Trenton Bourget might not be he can run, he can definitely scramble, so there's going to be chances for him to do it, maybe pick up some yards and go from there. But I do look at it as if you give it to Valade and Nagata, you can definitely chunk this Wildcats defense. They got to be thinking committing more guys to it. Yes, it's a rivalry game. Yes, everybody will be fired up in the beginning, and I'm sure Coach Fish but Coach Iguano said it. I mean, playing with passion, not emotion. If you start playing with emotion, you'll make extra mistakes. You can be passionate about it and play that way and stay focused and locked in. But yes, a rivalry game, there's going to be some chippiness. And when you look at that, and like I said, individual wise, what Jaden Delora is doing is insane. Defensively, I want to get Kyle Soley. He's pretty much gone wire to wire, leading the Pac-12 in tackles. Now, he missed the Washington State game, and he is 3 up on Dayan Henley from Washington State. But Kyle Soley, 105 tackles this season, leading the Sun Devils, leading the conference. And when we look team-wise, like for tackles, again, the leader in the country is Jason Henderson from Old Dominion, has 161. So he is running away with the tackles title, is Mr. Henderson. But Kyle Soley he's tied for 17th at 105. And I mean, you figure if he got 10 today, which would be a big day, 115, that would put him up around, depending on what everybody else says. Yes, I know. But right now, put him up around 5th. But still, you finish with 115 tackles on the season. If you have a massive day and has 15 tackles, to get to 120, that would be absolutely huge. But still, Kyle Soley, man, what a phenomenal career this young man has had at ASU, coming from Scottsdale Saguaro High School. He is playing next to his younger brother, who's depending on how they're formation wise, but his younger brother Connor is playing linebacker next to him as well. So, but yeah, Kyle Soley, I mean, just locked in. The frustration he had after the Oregon State game, he just wanted to talk about the next game. He said he was ready moving forward, but a phenomenal season. And if he plays that Washington State game and you add another 7 to 8 tackles, I mean, 10 tackles, he's up at 115 already. So, man, it's and the fact that he couldn't go, he was there and wasn't able to go, then something was definitely wrong with Mr. Soley. But man, again, you see it, who I'm picking. But I do think it'll be high scoring. I think it'll be I'm going to say the Sun Devils win it 52 to 42. The Sun Devils win the game 52 to 42 is my prediction for this game, as the Sun Devils keep it 6 in a row in the Territorial Cup. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, I'll talk UCLA, Cal, and then Oregon State, and Washington State, and the other games on the other side. But UCLA, Cal up first here on Pac-12 Preview on the Sideline Sports Network. All right, we are back here on Pac-12 Preview. Hit the results from last week, hit the rankings, hit the standings, and ASU U of A, as they say, it's personal here in Arizona and at ASU. Again, happy that we had a great Thanksgiving. So it's not me, but they're calling it Hate Week because of the A in Arizona. So that being said, again, I had the Sun Devils in that. Our next game, though, like I said, is the Bruins and the Golden Bears of California, as they kick off at 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific on Fox. And the Bruins looking to rebound from that loss to USC, like I said last week, as they fell 48-45 to the Bruins. Cal coming off a huge rivalry game win against the Cardinal of Stanford, 27-20, as they charged back in the fourth quarter. They had 6 points going into the fourth quarter, did the Golden Bears, which they scored all in the first. And then they put up 21 in the fourth. And Stanford, who had 17 going into the fourth, only put up 3. And Cal, in the 40th anniversary of the Bands on the Field, yes, look it up, youngsters. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look up the Cal Stanford, the Bands on the Field play. And yes, you'll appreciate the non-high def video. That being said, this game's still huge for UCLA because, like I said, if UCLA does win this game, they finish 6-3 in conference play. They're ranked 18th in the country. That would be 9 wins for them on the season. Cal, 2-6 in conference, 4-7 overall. They'd be looking to overstate the Irish, go 3-6 and finish 5-7. But this game, again, not being bowl eligible, I think Chip Kelly's going to want to put it on because, again, just to put pressure up top. If Oregon State loses and Utah loses and UCLA wins, UCLA would pretty much finish third in the Pac-12. I want to say that they beat Washington early in the when Washington went there. So they would be, again, this is just the madness that I'm talking about, because if you get Oregon State to lose to Oregon, they would be 5-4. Utah beating, I just don't see Colorado beating Utah. Colorado's won one conference game, and that was against Cal in overtime. And Kyle Whittingham, again, coming off a game like that, they definitely want to improve their bowl stats, but get to 9 wins. So, but if for some reason Utah does lose the game, they would be 6-3 as well. And UCLA on the tiebreaker would actually finish ahead of them in conference play. Same thing if Washington. So if Washington and Utah both lose and UCLA wins, right, they would all be 6-3, and UCLA has a tiebreaker over both of them. So UCLA would finish third in the Pac-12. So yes, Chip Kelly still firing his team up to play for something. And not that Justin Wilcox isn't, but when you look at this matchup, it's overwhelmingly in favor of UCLA. They still put up 45 on SC. And I said in the beginning of the show, people saying, oh, defense, SC put up 48. Defenses are still good. That's how good these offenses are. And in this day and age, it's no surprise that they were able to score. So both teams were able to score at that kind of clip and just make it a just insane instant classic in the battle for LA. So looking at that, but yeah, you look at this UCLA Cal game. Cal on the season, Jack Plummer, I mean, fifth in passing in the conference with 2,801 yards passing is Jack Plummer, and he's completed 62% of his passes, 17 touchdowns, but to 9 interceptions. So again, not the biggest of margins there. They're having some turnovers, and the consistency. I've talked about it all year. I mean, that was preseason when you're talking to just seeing what's going on in Cal. It's about being consistent, building it, practice by practice, but just offensively, defensively be able to complement each other. And yes, all teams don't do it all the time, but you can see when teams are building that consistency, when the offense is, thriving off the defense getting off the field so the offense can do more and getting off on third downs. And it's just for Justin Wilcox this season, we've seen I won't even say flashes. We've seen steps of it, but now to put it together all game long. I mean, they were going toe to toe with Oregon, was Cal. And so you see it, that when they're playing these teams, it's right there. But I just think, like I said, UCLA coming off that tough loss, and not that Cal's going to let down after the huge win against Stanford, but it needs to be consistent. Jack Plummer, again, like I said, 2,801 yards, fifth in the conference, 17 touchdowns, just 9 interceptions, fifth in the conference. And rushing wise, Cal's highest rusher is sixth, Jaden Ott, who's carried the ball 157 times for 842 yards. So, I mean, an outside shot of getting to 1,000 yards on the season for Ott. Needs a 158 to get there. It will be a big rushing day against the Bruins, but Ott has has 8 rushing touchdowns on the season. So, again, he's visited the end zone at a good clip. Chance to, again, 158. If you got 158 and 2 touchdowns, that would be 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns on the season. Be a heck of a season for Jaden Ott. But again, he's had a solid season so far anyway. I mean, 6, like I said, in the conference with those 842 rushing yards. And then receiving wise, Jeremiah Hunter for Cal. And I have talked about him, maybe not enough, but 812 yards. He's fifth in receiving yards for the Bears. And yeah, like I said, 52 receptions on the year for 812 yards. 188 yards he would need receiving. So yeah, they would have to go absolutely nutso against UCLA, but still a heck of a season, averaging 15.6 per reception, 3 receiving touchdowns for Hunter on the season, but a guy that has been a threat. And when you're averaging, to overstate the obvious, you're a threat when you're averaging 15.6 per reception. And then when you look at him team-wise overall, Cal, again, you're going to be tough to match up against UCLA because they are 10th in total yards a game at 364.9 are the Golden Bears. And then when you look at passing wise, Cal is 6th, 265.6 yards a game. Not bad. I mean, again, Jack Plummer's done a good job. It's just doing it consistently, building on drives, and not having turnovers, not going 3 and out, back-to-back, back-to-back possessions. And yes, there's a defense there punching you in the mouth. You know me, I always say that. But and then rushing wise for Cal, they are 12th in the Pac-12. They aren't even rushing for 100 yards a game, 99.3 yards a game, and they are dead last in the Pac-12, only team under 100 yards a game. And yeah, so I was going to get into it. That's why I wanted to share that, because here in my notes, it's one of those things where when you're not rushing for 100 yards a game, teams aren't really respecting the play action. You always hear that. Can you get teams to respect the play action? And it's tough, but look, for UCLA, I mean, DTR, and we look at the other side, Dorian Thompson-Robinson has had a solid season. He's 7th in the Pac-12. He's thrown for 2,694 yards, 24 passing touchdowns to just 7 interceptions for DTR. And man, and plus you're completing almost 70% of his passes. He's a millimeter there under 70%. He's at 69.8%. So trying to he has the highest completion percentage in the Pac-12. And if he could go out regular season finishing at 70% completion percentage for DTR, and he's one of those guys that, also rushing. I mean, you look at UCLA, Zach Charbonnet, that's my guy leading the Pac-12. He didn't play against ASU. 1,240 yards rushing for Mr. Charbonnet. He is tops in the Pac-12, 1,240 yards on 171 attempts, 7.3 yards per touch. And his long on the season is 49, 13 rushing touchdowns for Zach Charbonnet on the season for UCLA. So this young man, again, I still feel, and again, Blake Corum from Michigan got injured, but I still felt those were the two running backs. If you're going to invite somebody to New York, those are the two running backs that definitely should be there, because Zach Charbonnet, it's not even just it's not even just the rushing, guys. It's not even just the rushing. It's the passing that is just absolutely or the receiving, I should say. Sorry. It's not in the run game, in the receiving game. It's one of those things, but like I said, 1,240 rushing yards on the season with 13 rushing touchdowns. Now, when you look at Zach Charbonnet receiving wise as well, it's you'll just, again, I laugh because it is video game-ish, and in a Chip Kelly offense, when you have a dominant running back like that can Zach Charbonnet on the season, 299. So an eyelash under 300 yards. So 299 yards receiving. He doesn't have any receiving touchdowns, but I mean, so 300 yards to his, so that's 1,540 yards on the season for Zach Charbonnet. And look, this young man, like I said, can do it all. Did miss the one game. And Blake Corum, again, from Michigan, getting obviously the attention and hype he should, but there's not him and Zach Charbonnet, they're equal to each other. There's nothing that one does on a field that the other can't do. They can do it all, especially, I mean, you see the powerful running, but you see the receiving out of the backfield. But Zach Charbonnet tops in rushing, and it's well, the receiving list is Cal or Arizona and Washington, but UCLA's top receiver, he's at 10th in the conference, Jake Bobo, 47 receptions on the season, 727 yards, 6 receiving touchdowns for Jake Bobo of UCLA. And Kashmir Allen also 403 yards on the season on 48 receptions, averaging 8.42 receiving touchdowns for Kashmir Allen. Also filled in a little bit at running back at Arizona State. So this Chip Kelly offense, look, I've seen flashes and improvement from Justin Wilcox and Cal, but to me, that's just one of those things where it's tough, man, because you're playing a UCLA team that, again, has a tough loss last week in a rivalry game, and you feel, oh, there's going to be a letdown. You don't know Chip Kelly team. So Cal's in. I think Cal's in for it. I think UCLA puts up another 48 this week, 45. I'm going to say they win. I'm going to say they win 45-17 over the Golden Bears in this game. And it's, again, I think Zach Charbonnet goes crazy. And I think runs it all over the Golden Bears. All right, let's get to tomorrow's matchups. Well, the formerly known as the Civil War, Oregon and Oregon State, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific on ABC. The 9th-ranked Ducks, the 21st-ranked Beavers, and man, you talk about you talk about rivalry and what it means. Yes, I know for Oregon, a lot of them feel that Washington, because of the success in general Washington's had, um, and that's another huge Northwest rivalry in which Washington again held on to win that game this year. But Oregon State, I mean, oh, again, no love lost there. I love what Justin Smith has done. We know they can run the ball. We know Oregon can run the ball. We know what Bo Nix has done this season. And when you look, Oregon last week getting that 20-17 victory over Utah, which is huge, and that's the smallest amount of points seemingly Oregon's put up this year. But when you're playing Utah, you're not gonna be able to chuck it all over a Kyle Whittingham team or run it all over him either. But Bo Nix again last week, 25 of 37, 287 yards and a touchdown, and he wasn't really as mobile as he's been. Didn't rush a lot, and again, it was just a beautiful, beautiful chess match between the Ducks and the Utes. And Oregon State, like I said, got 31 points. I mean, Damian Martinez, I talked about it, 22 carries, 138 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And when we look at this, defensively, Oregon State is third in the conference, starting with the Beavers, third in the conference, only giving up 20.3 points per game is the Singy Beavers defense. Yards allowed, they are second, 330.6 yards a game is what they allow. And in sacks, well, like I said, everybody's chasing USC, but Oregon State is tied for 7th with the Sun Devils at 16. So they have 16 sacks. Getting out a bad season, but not getting a crazy ton of pressure on the quarterback. And again, Bo Nix, if you get pressure, again, you better keep contained, because if he's we know he's able to move. Last week again, he was hobbled, a little banged up, but able to go against Utah. So yeah, now he just had another week to see if he can if he gets back to himself. It is going to be tough, because when we look at the other side, Oregon 511.2 yards a game. By the way, the Bruins are at 504.9. So Oregon is second in the conference at 511.2 yards a game. Yeah, and that's second offensively. Passing wise, the Ducks are throwing for 288.3 yards a game. Rushing wise, 222.9 yards a game. They are second. So it is going to be a test for Oregon State. And like I said, they're only giving up 20.3 points per game and 330.6 yards per game. So it's it is going to be just very physical, very awesome, a little chilly up in the Pacific Northwest, but man, I just and what Bo Nix has done this season, I mean, throwing for 3,062 yards, 4th in the conference. And rushing wise, Bucky Irving for Oregon, he's 5th in the conference overall. And you can't he's 5th in the conference overall. So it's one of those things where, man, I mean, when you look at the matchups, I mean, Martinez and Irving, having a little competition, and Bucky Irving is just 16 yards behind Damian Martinez. Martinez 867 on the season, Bucky Irving 851. When you go to receiving, yes, it's the Arizona Washington show. Oregon's top receiver, he's at 6, actually. Troy Franklin, who's had a hell of a season, 48 catches, 789 yards, averaging 16.4 per reception, 7 receiving touchdowns for Mr. Franklin of the Ducks. And for the Beavers of Oregon State, Trayshawn Harrison, 50 catches on the season for 589 yards, averaging 11.8 per reception, 4 touchdowns for Trayshawn Harrison of Oregon State. So, I mean, back and forth in a rivalry game. To me, this one, I say, man, it is tough to pick, but it is in Corvallis. The Ducks need the win to go. I think the Ducks win on a late field goal. I'm going to say it's 38-37. The Ducks win it in sorry everybody in Corvallis, but the Ducks get the 38-37 win over the Beavers. And yeah, I think they get the 38-37 win over Oregon State. Utah, Colorado. Look, Cam Rising had his worst game of the season last week against Oregon. You look at when I say this to you again, I said it on Monday. I couldn't believe it. 21-38, 170 yards passing. No touchdowns, but count them, 3 interceptions. And yeah, they're going to be on fire. They're going to be absolutely livid from dropping, again, a tough game. Not like they lost to a bad team. They went up to Eugene and had a very a tough one against Oregon. But yeah, 3 interceptions. Tavion Thomas, a running back, had 19 carries, but only for 55 yards. He's going to want to go crazy. Dalton Kincaid did have 11 receptions for 99 yards, but no touchdowns. And yeah, you look at, again, Cam Rising has not had a game like that whatsoever at all. In the 2 years he's been the starter now at Utah. But team-wise for Utah, they are number 2 in the defensively. This is what Colorado has to deal with. They're number 2 in points allowed. They're just giving up 20 points per game. Yards allowed, they're number 1, 329.5 yards a game. Sacks, they are number 2, 30 sacks on the season. It's going to be tough for Colorado. It's just been that kind of season. Sorry, Buffaloes. The Utes get this victory, and I think it's big. I'm going to go 55-7. 55-7. Utah gets this victory over Colorado, and yeah, just improves again on a tough season. Notre Dame USC, man, it's in Southern Cal, and again, since Notre Dame's not a Pac-12 team, obviously they're independent. But I think, look, USC's in the championship game. They don't want to let down. I think Notre Dame, with how they beat down Clemson, and again, have been on a nice little winning streak here. They are 8-3, but I think the Trojans at home in Southern California, that crowd is going to be absolutely lit. Caleb Williams solidifies his invitation to New York, because you look at what this young man has done on the season. Caleb Williams has passed for 3,480 yards for the Trojans, completing 65% of his passes. He's third in the conference, again, yardage wise, at 3,480, just 5 behind Jaden DeLora of Arizona. But he has thrown 33 touchdowns, 33 to just 3 interceptions on the season. And Michael Penix Jr., we haven't talked about, Washington plays Washington State. He's thrown double that. He's thrown 6, and he's had a phenomenal season. But 33 touchdowns, passing touchdowns for Caleb Williams to just 3 interceptions. And when you look at what Caleb Williams also, he's not ahead of Bo Nix rushing wise. Bo Nix has rushed for 513 yards on the season. Caleb Williams has rushed for 316 yards and another 7 touchdowns. That's 40 total touchdowns for this young man. So yes, and Hendon Hooker, who I loved, Tennessee, again, had the unfortunate ACL injury. But I will say this, it is unfortunate he had it, and I think it would have been a heck of a battle between him and Caleb Williams. And yes, I know, you Ohio State fans, if you see this, CJ Stroud, yes, heck of a year, but I still think Caleb Williams, everything he's done, obviously transferring, yes, with Lincoln Riley coming up, being the head coach at USC. But that being said, man, I don't see SC losing this game. I think SC wins this game. I'm going to say 33-20. SC wins this game over Notre Dame, and they're going to get after it in Southern California and charge into the Pac-12 championship game. And yeah, SC gets that victory. BYU, Stanford, I'm just going to say this. Sorry, Stanford. I'm going with BYU to beat you. Washington and Washington State, though, I want to end with this. The Apple Cup as they call it. Washington, 13th ranked Washington at Washington State, 10:30 Eastern time, 7:30 Pacific tomorrow night on ESPN. And for Stanford BYU, that's literally 11 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock Pacific, if you want to see, and that's on FS1 tomorrow. But yeah, Washington State, this is huge. Michael Penix Jr., again, I've been saying it. I've been wanting to get to this young man because passing-wise, he is tops in the Pac-12, 3,869 yards. So just 131 yards away from 4,000 on the season. And Michael Penix Jr. not only leading the Pac-12, but in the nation, he is the number one passing quarterback in the nation is Michael Penix Jr. And that is what Washington State is going to have to deal with, because you look at team-wise, Washington, third in yards, 505.2 yards a game. Number one in passing, 366.8 yards a game. Rushing-wise, again, we know the Huskies don't rush. It's kind of like Arizona. They spray it all over the field. But Washington is sixth in the Pac-12 in rushing. And they, again, 138.4 yards a game. Again, that's obviously not bad. But with what they do in the air, I mean, so, again, third in yards, first in passing, sixth in rushing. So, in the conference, so not too bad. Defensively, the Huskies, fourth in points allowed at 25.7, third in yards allowed, 362.9. Washington State, though, is right behind them. They give up 366 yards a game, and they're both tied for third in sacks. Both teams have 29 sacks on the season. Man, this Apple Cup is going to be insane. And more so than in years past, because Washington, again, they still have that shot to win the Pac-12 or win this game and go to, I shouldn't say win the Pac-12, but go to the Pac-12 championship game. As, again, if they win and the Ducks lose, they would go to the championship game. So I do have Washington winning this game. I think it is going to be a very close game. I think it's going to I'm going to go with 35-33, the Huskies over the Cougars. Sorry, Cougs fans. I know Beavers fans, you don't like me either. Arizona fans, you obviously don't like me anyway. But yeah, I think that Michael Penix Jr. and Kalen DeBoer, again, has done a phenomenal job coming from Fresno State. And another new coach in the Pac-12, and there are quite a few this season, and there'll be, a few more next year, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, I got the Huskies over the Cougars. Yes, Huskies over the Cougars, guys, in the Apple Cup. So, man, it is going to be one heck of a rivalry weekend. Again, real quick, the TV schedule of it all today. Again, 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific is coming up here. Noon Pacific, Arizona State is in Tucson taking on Arizona. Yes, I will be there for that. And then later on today at 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific on Fox, UCLA goes up to Northern California to take on Cal. Then tomorrow, the day kicks off in the Pac-12, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific, Oregon at Oregon State on ABC, Utah at Colorado, 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific on the Pac-12 network. Then on ABC, yes, the prime time game, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Number 6 USC hosts 15th ranked Notre Dame, and again on ABC, Washington and Washington State. That's 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific on ESPN, and the Extreme Nightcap on a Saturday night, Thanksgiving weekend, 10 or 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific. Stanford hosting BYU on FS1. So that is the schedule for you. Again, I took a BYU in that game against Stanford. I got ASU over U of A. I got UCLA over Cal. I got UCLA over Cal. I have Oregon over Oregon State, Utah over Colorado, USC over Notre Dame, Washington over Washington State, and like I said, BYU over Stanford. So if that does happen, that does happen, it will be USC and Oregon in the Pac-12 Championship game. If Oregon does lose and Washington wins, then we'll see the Huskies and the Trojans in the Pac-12 Championship game. So, going to get out of here again. Hope everybody had a phenomenal Thanksgiving and with their family and friends, and had a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend of football, which again started yesterday, but enjoy your weekend of football. I will see you guys on Monday for Pac-12 review, letting you know who's in the Pac-12 championship game, how these games boiled out. Again, great rivalry games. Check them all out. I will see you Monday. Again, hope you all had a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you to everybody here at Sideline Sports. Shout out to my boy Eric Wilson, who is 2-1 in NFL picks because he just won't pick the right team. But anyway, I will see you Monday. And like we always say, forks up.